Welcome back to CSEC English Made Easy. Today we're looking at persuasive writing techniques. Now, in looking at persuasive writing techniques, I'm going to ask you, what is it? That is my go-to question, right? So what are techniques? Now, we have to remember that techniques are used by the writer to persuade the reader, right? And so if we dive into it, we can say techniques are devices a writer employs to convince the audience/reader. And I say audience because we have to remember that persuasive writing, you have speeches, you have advertisement, and those are delivered to audience, right? To an audience. And so the aim of using these devices, the major aim is that they will enable your target group, your audience, your reader, to agree with your point. So once again, depending on whether you are writing an argumentative essay or persuasive essay, you must include persuasive techniques to support your point, to develop your point, to help to hone in on the purpose you are trying to achieve by writing your essay, right? Now, let us look at some techniques. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth. I am going to briefly explain each technique, and I suggest that you do further research because I don't want this video to be an hour. So let's dive into it. Once again, especially when you are using or not using writing your argumentative essay, it is good to use facts. When you're writing your persuasive, you can use your opinions to kind of persuade, but remember, when you're presenting your arguments for your argumentative essay, it is important that they are grounded in facts, right? So we're looking at the list of persuasive techniques, and they are the use of facts and opinions. Remember, when you're writing your argumentative essay, it is very important to include facts because you're trying to convince your reader that what you're saying is true. And so facts are important. When you're looking at writing your persuasive essay, you can include your opinions to convince the reader, but it is always good to know facts. Use of evidence based on authority, and when we talk about authority, we're talking about leaders in various fields. It could be doctors, scientists, it could be a dentist, it could be public figures based on the topic that you're writing about. So an authority that people might think is an authority in sports, or would be Usain Bolt. That's a very popular public figure. That person might say, okay, if Usain Bolt says this works, then I believe. So something to bear in mind. You also want to look at drawing conclusions, making sure that your reader is able to present your point, and you draw your conclusions based on your point to support what you're saying, and that can be used to convince your reader. The use of evidence, and in this case we're talking about statistical data, figures. It is always good to know the statistics based on the topic that you are covering. We see this used a lot, the use of analogy, where you have a comparative analysis being presented to say, hey, this is better than this works this way. We see this employed a lot in the terms of advertisement. The use of contrast, showing the difference between two things, that's another device that is used. Repetition, a very common one. I normally say to my students that if all else fails and you don't remember what to use, repetition is one that you can always keep in your pocket. Use of emotive language. This is another one that is very powerful. When you use language that appeals to people's emotion, that is one way of convincing your audience. Another way is direct personal appeal. So it seems like you are speaking directly to the person that you are presenting your argument to. So the use of the personal pronouns, you, we, I, make it more like you're talking directly to your audience. Anecdotes, sharing stories. This is employed a lot in certain instances. This is a way to also persuade. Always remember irony. This is a key technique that is employed when looking at persuasive writing. And another key technique is sarcasm. This is employed often by writers, right? Hyperbole, another easy one to remember. Gross exaggeration. Let's go back. There wasn't another one? Okay. So, all of these are just a few. There is one that is not here. Rhetorical question. I can't believe I didn't put it. And a rhetorical question is a question that is asked that does not require an answer. So a rhetorical question, that's always a good one to have. Now, something to remember. Always remember this. When writing, especially under exam conditions, you might not remember all the techniques. But what I suggest is that you have at least 3, 4, 5, if you can, techniques that you find to be very easy for you to employ in your writing, and so that you have them in your, like you have them to say, okay, I know I can use repetition, I know I can use direct personal appeal, I know I can use irony, I know I can use hyperbole, and you employ them in your writing when you are writing under exam conditions. Because persuasive techniques, these are what will help you to achieve your purpose of convincing your reader. Now, let us dive into a brief activity. I'm going to give you a brief activity. Now, all of us would have been aware, I hope we are aware of the situation that is going on in Ukraine currently. And so I have here an extract from President Zelensky's speech that was given on February 28th, right? And he gave this speech, and there's an extract from the speech before you. Our aim today is to look at this extract, and we are identifying persuasive techniques that the president would have employed within his speech. So let us look at the extract. I'm going to read it, and while I read, you look, and then we will talk. But our main goal is peace in Ukraine and the safety of our people, Ukrainians. For that, we are ready to have talks with anybody, including you, in any format. on any platform. The war will deprive security, and just a pause, when you see an extract and you see a word in parentheses like that, brackets, it means that the word was not in the original speech, but it is added here in the written version for the context of the reader to make the reader know. So the reader can know that this is what the president was referring to when he spoke about deprived guarantees. All right, so let me go back. The war will deprive security guarantees from everybody. Nobody will have guarantees of security anymore. Who will suffer the most from it? The people. Who doesn't want it the most? The people. Who can stop it? The people. But are there those people among you? I am sure. So this is our extract that we would have gone through. I suggest you take a minute to pause and to reflect on the devices that you think might be here. Go back, come back, go back to the previous slide and come back to this one, and let us begin. All right, so you would have taken your minute, or I hope you did. And so let us look at the answer. Now I've color coded my response. In looking at it, we saw rhetorical questions in yellow over and over. And for those of us who might not know, rhetorical question, as stated before, is a question that is asked. It does not require an answer, but it is asked. It is asked so that it gives the audience something to think about, so that whatever topic is being discussed resonates in the mind of the audience. The audience is able to think about it, right? So we saw 4 rhetorical questions being asked here. Who will suffer the most? Who doesn't want it the most? Who can stop it? But are there those people among you? So those rhetorical questions. We also saw repetition. The repetition of the people, placing emphasis on only the people can stop this. Only the people, if they rise up, they can stop it. So we saw two, in this short extract. We also can, what's a word I'm looking for? We also can say that there is an attempt of direct personal appeal here. It's not as clear as the repetition and the rhetorical question, but there's an attempt at direct personal appeal. So when the president says, for that we are ready to have talks with anyone, and notice, including you. So based on the person he's addressing, I will have talks with you. I am ready to talk to you. Once again, it's not strong, but there's a hint of it. And at the end of his speech right here, where he says, I am sure, it's like, pulling on the emotions as well. Emotional appeal is there. Say, hey, I need help. We can't do this alone. The people, and the mere fact, the emphasis is there. The repetition of the people is also pulling on the emotions of the audience to say, hey, we need your help. We need you to stand up. So hopefully, comment below. Let us know how many devices were you able to identify. Did you see it? Do you understand? And once again, this is one of the many speeches that you can make reference to. Another speech that is also good with a lot of persuasive techniques is Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream. Quite a number of speeches that you can go and look at to see if you can identify the persuasive techniques that are employed by the speaker in order to convince the audience. This is important because, as we said in lesson 2, that speeches are in fact types of persuasive writing. All right, so have a great day, everybody, and I will see you in the next lesson.